Hi, this is Joe Bonnier for FastPitchPower.com. Today's video is going to be a follow-up to last week's video post on why you may be having difficulty keeping your front side closed during batting and pitching. In last week's video, I described how the stability or alignment of this front quadrant of the body, along with the available range of motion in the lead hip, contribute to allow the pelvis and upper body to rotate into and on top of a stable front leg or lead leg during batting and or pitching. Okay? Athletes can have a hard time keeping that front side closed for two reasons. And really, for most athletes, it's going to be a combination of physical limitations from two things. One is limited mobility in the hip. The other is limited stability in this front side of the body. Both of which can contribute to the same technical fault. An athlete can have limited mobility in this front hip for two reasons. Okay, specifically what we're looking for, the most important movement here for our athletes is the ability to have internal rotation of the hip. This free internal rotation is what allows, when the foot is stable on the ground, the upper body to spin into the front side. If that movement is blocked, and this is all the rotation I have, if this door slams shut, other doors have to open up early. Some athletes have the tightness in their hips, in their hip flexors, okay, restricts the hip motion. And those things can be addressed through self-massage and some stretching exercises that I'll show you. A smaller percentage of athletes that we work with will actually have skeletal abnormalities, in which limit their skeleton to abide by technical standards that work for the majority of our athletes. Right? So some athletes, instead of having 45 to 50 degrees of internal rotation at the hips, will present with 20 to 30. That doesn't mean they have limited total mobility in their hips, because these same athletes will have a ton of external rotation. So what I'm saying here is that their axis is off. Their neutral is slightly outturned at the feet. Okay? These athletes will feel most comfortable doing exercises and drills like batting drills with that lead leg, in which they have to exhaust rotation out of that hip with a slight outturn of their front leg. There's nothing we can do about their skeleton. Okay, however, keeping them closed, their front side, is really limiting them, and is unfair, because their skeleton cannot perform the same movements, or cannot perform in the same positions as everyone else. All right. Now, as I mentioned last week, we don't just affect internal rotation at the hip by turning our leg in or out. We can affect or approach end range of internal rotation by arching our lower back and sticking our butt out, anteriorly forward tilting our pelvis. As the pelvis rotates over the femur this way, we decrease available internal rotation. Okay, we cover the hip with the hood of that socket, and we're going to get blockage of internal rotation. We're going to get structures running into each other. Now we clear that mobility, okay, if we get back into neutral. Okay, again, so we can't only we don't only affect internal rotation or total rotation at the hips by adjusting our leg position. We have to make sure that our athletes in a batting stance, right, aren't over-exaggerating the arch in their lower back. We have to put them into a neutral position. This is, again, biomechanically the safest. For athletes that have all the mobility in the world, or are total just Gumby, these things don't matter as much as they do for somebody with a skeletal abnormality. Okay, this will be very apparent. They're going to have somebody with limited internal rotation skeletally is going to have a very hard time staying closed. Combined with or exacerbated with bad technical habits, this is the last thing I'll say about technique, is that I know, as a former baseball player and watching softball and baseball games, that batters start to do funky things with that lead leg in effort to stay closed. Okay, they'll start to turn that front toe in. They'll bend the knee, they'll pick up the heel, and instead of separating their hands, okay, from their lower body and remaining stable on this front side in a neutral position for most athletes, their hands and their knee will kind of come together. And it takes exceptional timing, right, to get that foot back, okay, into a neutral position to allow the pelvis the motion, the range of motion to rotate into the front leg. If I land closed, the only thing I can do to get my hands to an inside pitch and to protect my front hip from injury is to open up my body. Okay, so there are a number of ways that we can free our athletes front side up. Okay, starting with just adjusting their front leg position, opening them up a little bit, to making sure they're not sticking their butt out too much here, or they're not too crouched forward. Okay, if they crouch forward too much, they're inevitably going to stick their butt out to maintain center of balance. You can't tuck your butt and crouch forward because you'll fall forward toward the plate. All right, so to maintain center of balance, they're going to compensate by sticking their butt back. To get them a little bit more upright, okay, with active abs, really nice tall torso, long torso, instead of sticking my butt out, just to keep a nice tall neutral torso, is going to put their front hip in the best position to be stable and to have all the range of motion that it has available, regardless if they have a skeletal issue or not. What I'm not saying is that if you have some skeletal deviation or abnormality that you can't play softball, that you can't hit. We just have to take these technical adjustments a lot more seriously than somebody who has all the range of motion in the world. However, for somebody who has all the range of motion they need, stability becomes the important factor. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, limited mobility or limited stability can contribute to the same technical issues. That front side flying open too early. Here's how. Okay, now, as I've hopefully described, if this hip is blocked, it doesn't allow my body to spin into it. If it gets stuck, this door slams shut, something else has to open to complete the movement. Hopefully that's clear and understood. Now, this is the movement I'm looking to prevent. Right? This hip popping out, foot flying open, upper body's coming forward. Okay, hitters, right-handed hitters are going to ground a lot of weak balls to to the third baseman or shortstop. We pop a lot of balls up. You're going to be out in front of pitches too much. Okay, have a hard time staying inside the ball. All these are the same thing. For pitchers, you're going to end up here. Okay, command is going to be thrown off. And probably a variety of other technical deficiencies that Phil and Carly can get into with more detail and understanding. All right, but stability can also be a contributor in this front side. How do I know that? At impact, or at contact during hitting, at release during pitching, all right, we are in a single leg stance. Well, if you look at these instances on a picture or video, it looks like in hitting, I'm on 2 feet here. Okay. Well, at contact, all my weight is on my front leg, and I am weightless on this back leg. Pitching, same thing. At release, this leg is just dragging through freely, effortlessly. We don't want our weight on our back leg acting as an anchor to slow our momentum down toward home plate. Okay? So, ideally, at release or at contact, all of our weight is on our front side. Our body is having to be supported by the muscles and stability in this lead leg. In the gym, we assess functional movement and stability on both 2 legs, and we assess and we train on 2 legs and 1 leg. On 1 leg, if you were to cut power to the muscles, you're going to cut the electricity to the muscles, every joint has a preferred susceptible direction of movement or compensation. It's going to give out in a predictable way. If there's no input to the muscles to be actively stabilizing the joint. The muscles aren't working. If you cut power, lights are off, volume's down all the way, your body's going to move in the same way every single time. If I'm on 1 leg, if I'm trying to support my body on 1 leg, what you will see when the volume's down and the power's off, all right, disregard my right leg here for balance. My hip is going to pop out, my knee is going to collapse in, my foot is going to flatten out. Okay, 100 times out of 100. Okay. On 2 legs, with the volume down, the power off, I collapse again inward. You can see how this is assessing both exercise on 2 legs and training exercise on 2 legs and 1 leg. It goes a long way to preventing knee injuries, because that's the most obvious deviation. Well, for a softball pitcher or batter, right, if I'm in a single leg stance phase, like release during pitching, or after following stride foot contact and pitching, or at contact, or as I shift my weight into my front side and hitting, as the responsibility of the front side becomes greater up until contact, if I don't have the stability, the volume's down on this hip. Where's the hip going to go? Where's the body going to go? It goes in the same direction every single time. Okay, the hip pops out, the upper body comes forward. And hitting, the arms get long, you ground balls to the third base side. Okay, weak ground balls. Okay, it's the same thing every single time. This movement here with the hip popping out and the knee collapsing in is the same as in batting or pitching, the hips flying out, the upper body coming forward. Okay, it's because I have a weak hip. So, weak hip, restricted hip is going to cause the same technical issues for softball. In the next video, I'm going to give every athlete exercises to both loosen up the hips and, again, turn up the stability in this front side. I want you to perform these exercises on both sides of the body to make sure that your body is properly warmed up. As you'll see, these exercises aren't just specific for healthy hips for hitting. These muscles that we're turning up, the hips that we're loosening up, are universally important for all athletic movements in softball and other sports.